my name's Tracey Henderson. I am a program manager at Sky UK. I'm currently working on some regulatory programs for the whole of Sky. And I graduated from Aberdeen University almost 40 years ago, so a long time ago.
Interesting. And why did you decide to study at the University of Aberdeen?
My father went there many, many years before. He was the first person in his family to go to university, and he chose to go to Aberdeen. So I decided to continue
Hmm.
with that tradition, and now my niece is studying there as well.
That's very nice. And what are some of your favorite memories from the university apart from studying? Many social
Um,
aspects.
Yeah, the social aspects. Freshers Week, I do still remember Freshers Week as being a lot of fun, and also sort of getting to know the people on my course and the people in my halls of residence as well. I've still got friends that I met at university, so that's good. But yeah, the social aspect was very good.
Nice. And are there any like particular student clubs or societies or sports teams you've been involved in?
I joined the German Society
Mhm.
as part of Freshers Week, but that was probably the only one that I joined, and that was really more for
Mhm.
social aspect to get to know people, other people
Yeah.
on the course, etc. So.
Interesting. And how would you say your education influenced your approach to leadership and project management in your career?
Um, I think coming from a small town and a very small school, I was slightly in awe of people with a private education. There were quite a few people in the wider group who had gone to the likes of Dollar Academy, and they seemed to have a lot more confidence and self assurance than those of us
Mhm.
sort of from a smaller town and smaller school had. I think that's made me more aware of working with different people in different teams. So looking out for people who may feel a little bit out of place or less confident. And it's helped me, I think, in bringing teams together as part of being a program manager. In addition to sort of delivering large programs of work, I work with lots of people across different teams, and just being, I think, aware of people who maybe look a little bit out of place or a little bit
Mhm.
uncomfortable, and then trying to bring them in and help them to feel more comfortable. So I think it's helped me in that way.
Mhm.
Feeling on the outside, I'm more able to identify people that may look like they could be on the outside as well, and then try and help them.
That's very interesting. And what were your career aspirations while studying?
Because I started doing French and German, I
Mhm.
always thought that I would go into a career in translation or interpreting, something like that. I hadn't thought any further, really, if I'm honest, at that time, than going to university and getting the degree. So it was really always thought I'd do something with my languages.
Interesting. So, and how did your career in banking prepare you for your career in TV and like news programs?
I think
Yeah.
the transferable skills really are
Mhm.
leadership. So the role that I had when I first started in banking, and through the years, was in operational roles. So
Mhm.
running a network of branches or regional offices in insurance. And whether we were hitting sales targets or meeting regulatory requirements or team building, the underlying commonality was in leadership. So it was the ability to bring people with you. I then, when we went through the banking crash in 2008, I was still in the branch network then. And HBOS, as was taken over, sorry, rescued, but actually taken over by Lloyd's. So I got involved in the migration. So got involved, I became the head of business readiness, which
Mhm.
helped me to understand a bit more about what was going to be coming for the staff and the people in our branches. And that then got me interested in project and program management. So I took the opportunity to get um, project management qualification, and then was approached by Sky to go and work in there. We've had several different names since then, but I was a delivery manager at the time in the change team, so delivering projects and programs. So I guess I evolved from being a leader across the operational network into doing change management, and then I discovered a love for that and a desire to get involved. So did a bit more training and then moved to Sky.
Interesting. And what would you say your biggest lesson that you learned from your career in banking?
Um, I think to be resilient,
Mhm.
um, particularly during the crash in 2008. There was a lot of pressure on the branch staff.
Mhm.
Customers were coming into the branches and screaming at the staff because they'd had bonuses all these years, and that was the reason that their money was impacted. And seeing the impact that had on people, and knowing that there was potentially an impact on me, I didn't know what was going to happen with the merger, with the takeover. So but I had to lead the team and I had to help them to believe that it was all going to be okay, even though sometimes I didn't know that it was going to be okay. And I was just as worried about myself as I was about them. So I think being resilient was one of the things I learned from that experience, particularly.
Interesting and very impressive as well. And what were some of the most rewarding aspects of leading the business readiness team at Lloyd's? Like,
For that, so like I said, we were
mhm.
HBOS were being rescued, taken over
Mhm.
by Lloyd's, and it was very much going to be the Lloyd's systems, the
Mhm.
Lloyd's processes, the Lloyd's senior management structure. So being asked to do the business readiness for the HBOS teams meant that I could have an influence and an impact on how their training was going to go. So there was very much a view that we were just moving everything over to the new platform, the new products, and people were feeling the loss of their heritage, of everything that they'd done over that, just in some cases decades. So
Yeah.
knowing that I could have an impact on how that training and learning would go gave me a big sense of achievement because I could make it as painless as possible for people. I then got involved in the actual training, so I could see
Mhm.
what we'd thought about, what we designed, what we put into the training. I actually saw that being delivered, so I could see how people were reacting to that. And then I went into the branches once the training had completed and where the systems had changed. So I was able to work with the people in branches and see how the training landed with them and how it potentially helped them to do their jobs in the new world. So it gave me a real sense of achievement in that I was able to help people go through a really difficult time and get out of it as positively as possible.
Interesting. And at your current role, yes, how do you ensure compliance with different regulations while delivering innovative customer solutions at Sky?
I work very, very closely with our legal and compliance teams.
Hmm.
So we have strong teams there that make sure that when we've got, because we do have lots of
Hmm.
fancy ideas and big new products, but we need to make sure we do it properly. So we've got really strong legal and compliance teams who we engage really early in the process. I'm actually working on a number of regulatory programs at the moment. So TVECS, so we are now going to be compliant to those regulations. So I'm working very closely with compliance on that because we did it a few years ago for broadband. And then interestingly, the government has just passed legislation around digital marketing competition, DMCC it's
Hmm.
called. And we're at the very early stages of that, where the government have said the legislation's coming in, and actually working with our lawyers and our compliance teams to say, here's the legislation, but it's so broad. How does that translate into what we're doing? And just watching them look at what the legislation is, looking at one piece of legislation, one section of it, and then asking questions to say, well, it could mean this, but it could mean that. So what's the best thing? How do we think it should? It's fascinating working with those lawyers and seeing them take very bland statements and try and translate them into something that we can actually use as we deliver the program. So we've got strong, strong teams working with us.
Interesting. And how do you foster innovations and creativity within your teams that you lead?
Um, I think it's really important to make sure that people feel empowered to
Mhm.
make their own decisions and to try things. So I think giving people a safe space where they can try things, and knowing that even if they fail or if it doesn't quite work, that they'll have
Mhm.
support. There'll be people around them who can help them and recover whatever it is that may have gone wrong. So not admitting, I think, that I don't always have the answers. So even though I'm the program lead, I don't have all the answers, and actually reaching out to people on the team to say, what do you think? What would you do? And giving them that autonomy to experiment almost in that space and make sure that they feel empowered to do that.
Interesting. And what advice would you give to someone considering a career transition similar to yours?
Go for it. Don't ever be constrained by fears or thinking, oh, can I do this? It's something different. It's a new field or it's a new job. Trust your gut. And if you think it's something that you can do, you don't need to know 100% that you can do it. Just give it a go. There's no right career path. You don't always take a linear path through your career. So if it means going sideways to do something a bit different that may then open up a different path for you, just try it. Go for it.
And a lot of students struggle with transition from academia to professional world. What advice would you give to them? How to navigate it?
We actually work with grads in our team. So we take an intake of graduates onto our grad scheme, various grad schemes across Skye every year. Well, we've slowed it down a little bit just now, but we have for a number of years taken in big numbers of grads. And what I'd say is I see bright young people coming in full of good ideas and enthusiasm, and that's brilliant. So don't lose that. Keep that enthusiasm, keep working hard and keep trying different things. But I would also say don't cast aside the older generation. So people like me who've been around for a long time. I may not be able to do all the fancy things on the tech gadgets necessarily, but I've got experience. We've got a lot of experience combined. We've got great networks as well because we've been around for a while. We've probably failed in ways that you can't even imagine that you could fail. So let us help you. We don't have all the answers, but listen to people with different experiences and don't always assume that the new way is the best way. Sometimes that experience can be really valuable.
And for these graduate roles, how can students stand out in the application process?
I would say, that's a good question, because I've done a few of the assessment centres. I would say you can stand out negatively by trying to be the loudest voice in the room. So we will do group exercises where we'll set them a task and we'll just ask them to sort of talk through their solutions or whatever the task is. And sometimes you can stand out for the wrong reasons just by being loud and being the only voice that people hear. I would say to stand out in a situation like that is to be measured. So think about what you're going to say, think about other people, and don't think that you have to have all the answers and be the loud voice. Sometimes encourage other people and be more of a leader in that situation rather than someone that, and being a leader means bringing people with you rather than just shouting and being the loudest voice. So I would say you can stand out negatively, but the best way to stand out is to work with the other people in the groups and empower them as well.
Interesting. That's a great advice. Thank you. And are there any particular books or podcasts or resources you would recommend for your type of career? Well, if it's a book, yes. Maybe it's something that motivates you, yes. Maybe it's not like career related, but something that you would recommend.
I have listened to a few podcasts by Brene Brown. And I've forgotten the names of the books, sadly. I could look them up. But books by Brene Brown about being a fearless leader are really, really good. They've really resonated with me over the years because it's about showing vulnerability as well as showing fearlessness. So those are really good podcasts and reads, I would say.
Interesting. And two more questions. As a student, how did you deal with stress, and what advice would you give for students struggling with stress?
As a student, I suffered with stress. In my first year, I decided to do computing studies, and that was in the old days. That was when it was more like programming than it is today. I'll give some context. When I left school, they were only just putting the very basic computers into the school, so we're going back a long time. So computing was definitely not for me, but I failed it, and that obviously triggered a lot of stress in me. But I spoke to other people, so it was only in my first year, but I had a good circle of friends. I would say talk to people, don't bottle things up. Ask for advice from lots of people. And if you have a family that's there and supportive of you, lean on them. They will surprise you in how supportive they can be. It won't be a failure in their eyes. It will be an opportunity for you to do something better. So I would say talk to people. Don't ever bottle things up, and just try and rationalize whatever it is that's stressing you, but don't bottle things up.
That's great advice. Thank you. And the last question is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say don't restrict your thinking. Go for it. Be brave and take risks. I've learned that over the years, but at the time I took the path of least resistance, doing languages, because that was what I was good at. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but there was a world out there of opportunity that I hadn't really explored, and I'm glad that I did. But at the time, I would say just trust your gut, take risks, and go for it.